If traveling was a sport, then India would be an Olympics. It's a beautiful country full of history, cultural heritage and some amazing foods, but also quite challenging at times. Recently I spent 2 weeks in this fascinating country, and today I'm going to be talking about a couple of things that could help you during your trip. I'm Luka Bobanac, and this is what I wish I knew before traveling to India. Hello everyone, so it's a beautiful Thursday here in Zagreb and I'm trying to enjoy the semi-sunny day here with my little dog on the walk near the river. And you know, as some of you may know, I have recently spent 2 weeks traveling around India, and as exciting and as fun as that trip was, it was also at times quite challenging. So you know, in this video I was kind of thinking of talking about like some things that I wish I knew before I traveled to India, and that would probably or definitely make my trip a lot more like not enjoyable, but it would definitely make it less stressful at times. So let's get into this video and let's talk about India. Woo! Attention. So the first thing I want to talk about is going to be the attention. So if you watched any YouTube videos, you probably do expect that as a traveler from Europe or USA in India, you're bound to get like some attention. Now what you probably didn't expect is the amount of attention that you might get during your trip. So if you're traveling in, let's say, bigger cities like Delhi, Mumbai, you're probably going to be fine. You may get approached a couple of times and asked to take a photo and stuff. You know, it happens from time to time, but once that you get into like the smaller cities, things change a bit. And look guys, let's be realistic. Usually you're going to get approached by a lot of kids and you probably won't mind it. I mean, at least I didn't. But it's just something to keep in mind, that it may take some time to take all those pictures. So you know, that's just something to keep in mind. Woo! Transportation. So when traveling to India, you probably expect that transportation is going to be pretty bad, you know, that you're going to spend a lot of times in traffic jams and stuff like that. And that is all true. Like, you are going to spend a lot of times in traffic jams in the city. But then one thing that I personally didn't expect when I was traveling to India is to see like the airplanes being so late, because that's the one thing that I kind of saw like the reliable transportation service, I guess. And it really isn't. So overall, during my stay in India, I was on 5 flights, and of those 5 flights, 4 were late 3+ hours. And I even had like one situation when I had like a layover flight, and then like the first flight was delayed, and I thought, oh my god, I'm going to be late for my second flight. But then what happened is that flight also got delayed, and that kind of shows you like the extent of the problem. So yeah, that's like something that you might not expect. Now on the other side of that coin, there are like trains, and when it comes to all like transportation services that you have in India, trains are probably the most notorious, and they're probably something that you like most expect to be late. But actually, you know, when it comes to trains, I was actually positively surprised. And out of like 3 train rides that I had in India, all came perfectly on time. So, you know, like that's something that would be good to put in consideration if you're traveling around India. You actually might want to book as much trains as possible. Maybe on some like longer, you know, distances you don't want to do it because they are quite slow, but still I think overall they are much more reliable transportation service than planes. Supermarkets. Now, like the third thing that I want to talk about are supermarkets, or the lack of supermarkets. And I'm not sure how relevant it's going to be for most people, but for me personally, whenever I travel, I try to eat at least 1 meal a day in supermarkets. So usually I buy like yogurt or cereal and I eat that for breakfast. Like that's my morning meal, which is like cheap, fast meal, and I find it like very useful when it comes to price cutting during the trip. Now, like the thing in India is that there really aren't that many supermarkets. Like even in bigger cities like Mumbai, you're not going to find them so often as you do in Europe, you know. So there are stores, of course, there are different form of stores, but really like supermarkets where you can buy these like everyday snacky things, you're not going to find that often. So for the food, you will mostly need to rely on restaurants. Hotels. Now the fourth thing on the list are going to be hotels. And as you all know, India is very, very famous for cheap prices, and that includes hotels. They are also quite cheap, you know, you can find them for absurdly low prices. But one thing to keep in mind is what type of service you get when you book those cheaper hotels. So I booked multiple hotels in India, like at all price ranges from like 25 to maybe 55 euro. And what I found is that if you really want to get the reliable service and if you want to get the Western standard, you will need to pay upward of 40 euro. So from 40 euro up, you kind of start getting quite reliable service. Now, when it comes to less than that, let's say if you want to get something very cheap and you're booking hotels that are maybe 25 euro, they might look good on pictures, because that's what happened to me. You know, I found many deals and I was like showing them to my girlfriend and I was like, check this out, check this hotel, like it's so good deal, 25 euro, but on the pictures it looks so nice, it looks clean. But then once you get there and once you get in the room, you will realize that it's really not quite the case, and that those hotels are not as they are in the pictures. I mean, you know, they are usually gonna be like older and dirtier. That's pretty much those two things, you know. You can't see certain dirt on the photos, you know, it translates good on pictures, but once you get there, you realize, okay, it's dirty. And I'm not gonna now name any hotel, obviously, that I visited that was dirty, you know, because I think it would be rude. And at the end, the price for those hotels were very cheap, so I can't really say that they were robbing me or anything, but this is just something that you should keep in mind if you're traveling to India and if you want to get like a certain type of service. Alcohol. Now this brings us to the last thing that I want to talk about, and this isn't necessarily something that is going to negatively affect your trip or that is going to affect you on day-to-day basis, but it is something that, you know, I just noticed and that I found a little bit unusual, and that has something to do with alcohol. So you might know that people in India don't really drink. Like, alcohol isn't really a thing in India. It's perfectly legal. You can buy it in the stores, like if you find a supermarket, but it's really not something that everyday Indians consume very often. And that is something that is going to translate in the restaurant service. So if you go to India and if you go to most restaurants, what you will find is that in my opinion, I didn't find any restaurant, to be honest, that served alcohol. So they just didn't serve it. And I was in Mumbai, I was in Delhi, I was in Ahmedabad, so those are all bigger cities. And I was like in the, what I would consider higher-end restaurants, and none of them ever served alcohol. And to be honest, when I was in India, I didn't really come there to drink or party or to enjoy myself in that way, but there was one particular situation when it was New Year and I was spending New Year in India, and I wanted to like drink a couple of beers or maybe like a little bit of wine and just have a good time in a way that I'm used to having good time on New Year. But you know, I crossed to 3 restaurants and I really couldn't find any of them that serve alcohol. And at the end of the day, you know, what happened was that I spent New Year drinking tea, which is perfectly fine. It was still a very good time and the food was very good, but just to keep in mind that if you find yourself in a situation where you want to go out for a bit, drink a beer or two and like relax a bit, then what you want to do is that you want to search for restaurants or bars that serve alcohol. I'm sure there are bars and restaurants that do it. You just need to look for them, as it is not nearly as common as it is in the West. And that is pretty much the last thing on this list that I made, and I hope you will find this list useful and that it will help you when planning or potentially planning your India trip. So guys, if you're going to India, good luck and see you in the next video.